Regulatory issues are very important in FTTH, and I'm joined by Tony Shortall. Tony, you moderated a session covering this very subject, in fact questioning whether telcos are going to actually take over. What was the finding of that? Must have been a heated debate.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose one of the things, there was a consensus in fact about the need to change regulation, but I think depending then on whether it was Stephen Tass from the incumbent community or Elizabeth Vittori from the entrant community, the view on how that needed to change, how regulation needed to change was different. But everybody agreed for sure that there needed to be a significant change to the legislative framework.
Now, I know you're an advisor to the council here in Europe. What do you think? How do you think it's going to go?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's kind of interesting, and I think there's a big difference emerging between urban and rural areas. And what we're seeing more and more are kind of market-driven solutions in urban areas where you get competing operators deploying networks, certainly not overbuilding each other. But what we see in countries like Portugal, Spain and France is that 2, 3, 4 operators build out their own networks, and once they hit a critical mass, they start to do commercial deals. But then once you start to look at rural areas, the economics become far more challenging. And there's a greater reliance, or there will be, I believe, a much greater reliance on public financing. And you see at a European level, the European Commission is trying to put together some funding to help member states, and already we have cohesion funds deployed through the multi-annual financial framework. So there is a recognition that the state has a role to play in helping to push fibre throughout the communities, and ensuring that there isn't a digital divide in the future.
And is that having an effect as far as you can see?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I mean, I think we can see already big initiatives in the Irish market, in the Polish market, where the governments are setting out a clear stall, saying that they want to ensure that there's very high speed, ultra fast broadband available, throughout rural communities as well. And one of the things, listening to some of the other sessions, you hear government representatives talking about the need to ensure that, it's ubiquitous, and they see it as a social and a societal issue, and they see it as really critically important.
I think also being technology neutral is an issue, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, when people go to allocate these funding, it's one of the founding pillars of the regulatory framework, this notion of technological neutrality. But even that, I think, is starting to change a little, in the sense that in the past the Commission and public policymakers have really said nothing about what a technology choice should be. And in a way, I agree. But it's important also to set minimum characteristics. So a minimum upload speed, a minimum download speed, some quality of service parameters, to ensure that, the network, particularly if it's public finance, that it should be future-proof. So if we invest today, we shouldn't have to reinvest in 5 years. And that's the great thing about fibre to the home networks. They're viable for the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years. And those are the time horizons that public authorities should be thinking.
Yeah, absolutely. Tony, thank you very much for talking to us.
Thank you, Brian. Thanks.
So the regulatory debate is set to go on, and probably on.